Hello and welcome to ThisConnect. Today it's time for us to share your advice.
With you. I'm actually shocked, okay, because I've gone through what feels like 1500, 1600 pieces of advice. A lot of it is on point, and a lot of it is also repetitive, which means that many people have seen that there is a benefit to doing it, which I thoroughly enjoyed reading.
Okay.
And I've picked out 10, 12 items I think that stick out. Some of it is easy stuff that will immediately make a difference. And some of it is a slightly more abstract idea. Some of it is not just automotive, it is beyond that also. And I love the mix. And I'm so happy to read it because it tells us that our audience is intelligent, they're thinking, they're trying to do better. And I think that is the best situation ever. What?
Sparked off a thought.
Yeah, see?
I love the idea of a riding school. So, like CSS for me is so much more than a school because the time that I spent at CSS, the second time I actually went to CSS was the time I actually got my head around what they were teaching us about how to ride a motorcycle. And I think I was receptive enough to absorb more. They were so powerful,
Yep.
right? That I keep thinking of them as life rules,
Yeah.
right? And I have spoken about that even to Sarhan, saying that if you can ride a motorcycle well and you follow these rules, those are rules that you can use for life. Like the simplest one, look far.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah,
Look
and it's
far.
the greatest advice you'll ever get for motorcycles and for so much else.
And for life, because if
Yeah.
you think about it, you're in, let's say, a shit situation today, but look far.
It's not so bad.
Yeah, it's okay, man. Life's long. There's lots more. There's
Yeah.
lots to see, lots to do.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
okay. This
yeah.
might be as bad as it is today. And the other one, which is C1 Chennai, always connect with that because it's so bumpy. What is it? You lose the loose elbows, right? So when you are in a tough situation and you're getting rattled, back off. Relax a bit. Don't try and grab onto things harder. Just relax. Take a step back.
Yeah.
So those kind of rules, and I'm not kidding. That book for me is golden. Not
Yeah.
because it makes you a better rider, but I just think about it that each one of those things applies to life.
Yeah, and in fact, the thing about motorcycling that I enjoy the most, and again, it's slightly dark and well, naturally it is. But I always think about the fact that motorcycles are a life and death recreational choice. It's a very real possibility. So when you recognize that, and then you're working hard to manage the risk of it and manage the thrill of it and bring skill to the table and do it every day and enjoy it, it is a bigger process than just I'm going to operate this contraption and get somewhere. There is more depth to that experience than that. And you do think more seriously than that. And I'm not surprised that the lessons apply. You know what I mean? If you think about it, the most difficult situation you've been in is probably the one that taught you the most about yourself, about approach, solutions, whatever. But if you weren't in that difficult situation, you wouldn't have learned so much in the first place. Motorcycles are difficult. I love it.
100%. It's always more satisfying when something is difficult, right?
Yeah.
And motorcycles are harder to master.
Yeah. And I think it's the fact that it is a more edgy thing that makes it the more interesting thing in some ways. Right? I think we should get back to the audience.
Yes.
So these are not in any specific order. We've just picked what we liked. I'm not going to say which platform each of these neither is Singy because I don't think there's any point there. We'll give you the user handles, but it might be Instagram, it may be Twitter, it may be YouTube, whatever. And honestly, there's too many responses to keep a track of who came from where. Okay. So first, the nice road boy, that's the handle. He says, find a good third-party mechanic. They're worth their weight in gold. You've been on the other side too. You've been a third-party mechanic.
Yeah.
How does that work? What kind of owners do you see and what kind of questions do you get, especially when you're seeing new bikes that are still in warranty? What happens in that situation?
What happens in that situation is typically when somebody was, let's say, in warranty, and if he's coming to us, means he's coming to us because he trusts us. That is the implied relationship. It's he's come to you because he expects better care than he would get for his vehicle at a regular service center.
What Singy will never say because he's such a nice guy is that what that also implies is that he does not trust the manufacturer's service station quite as much. And there's a reason for that. We'll go into it on some other podcast, but there's a fundamental reason why the nice road boy is spot on. You do need that third-party mechanic in India until we start paying mechanics more. And therefore, manufacturers can afford to have more senior, more skilled people working for them on a regular basis, which has two sides, right? We pay more, they pay more. Until that happens, third-party mechanics are the only way these mechanics can make substantial income. They will move out of the system, taking all of that knowledge and expertise with them. That's who you trust.
So when I had my CBC back in college, I used to do Pune Khopoli often, right? So I would be going downhill, and that would be the time when you would be able to go,
Yeah.
because the CBC used to refuse to go past 100.
Correct.
So you would always be like, thoda sa, So going downhill one day, I over revved it. I didn't realize I had no understanding of all that. All I know was when I was riding back a couple of days later from Khopoli back to Pune, I realized that my bike was not feeling as good. And the other distinct thing was that now I could see smoke coming out of the exhaust. So we went to the service station several times. The issue was unclear. So we changed the block, we changed the head, we changed this, we changed that. And it did not get resolved. Amjad, who's for me my guru on this, right? He's taught me how to work on bikes and everything. And his garage could have done the job. But he said, listen, this is within warranty, etc.
Don't take a
Whatever
chance.
it is, it should go to them. So it went there and he was overseeing it. He was letting them handle it. Finally, when it didn't happen, he got involved and he looked at everything. And it turned out to be the most bizarre thing. The connecting rod had got bent just a little bit.
Oh.
Just a little bit.
And they couldn't diagnose it.
And they could not.
Yeah.
So, and that was creating all the issues. So it was just going on again and again with all of that. Finally, they fixed it. But it took a lot of time. It took him to get involved.
Correct.
To get it fixed.
Yeah,
So, yeah, for me, 100%.
And I'll give you two more examples. There's a colleague of ours, ex-colleague of mine now, who's watching MotorInc. And he had a Hyosung Comet. And when he bought it, I said, you should go to Zubin and just get it checked once. And they found tons of loose bolts all over that machine.
Wow.
Right? And obviously, at that point, Kinetic was not doing the greatest job on quality terms, etc., etc. But it was still unexpected that a brand new motorcycle would have so many issues with it, right? The second example is I've seen people come to Zubin all the time with reasonably brand new machines, and what they're looking for primarily is diagnostic help. It's what the manufacturer's representatives are weakest at. If the diagnostic OBD kit tells them this is wrong with the machine, then it's pretty simple. But if it is something else, usually the mechanics aren't skilled enough or experienced enough to be able to figure out this is the issue that is leading to all of these things, and therefore if we change this, tighten this, loosen this, whatever it is, then this issue will just go away, right? It doesn't work.
You bring out a very interesting point there, because when you think about a factory or basically a brand workshop, it's a large scale operation.
Correct.
They cannot get that kind of skilled manpower
Yeah.
all the time for all the outlets.
Yeah, they can't.
Right? So they have to get processes which will say work with the greatest common denominator.
Correct. And move as fast as possible because it's India, right? You've got so much volume that moving things along is far more important, and therefore replacing is what the default solution is. It's not repairing.
Exactly.
It's not that things can't be repaired. It's that in the mass market system where you're moving quickly, you can't afford to waste time repairing things. It's just faster as a whole system to keep replacing things and moving on. That's why you need the third-party mechanic, because when the warranty ends and you want to step out of this system, this is the person you need on your side.
Absolutely. Works.
Yeah, your turn.
All right. The next one is from Adarsh Singh. Lovely. It's better to be alive than to be right. This was in reference to defensive driving.
Yeah, I agree. It's the simplest idea ever. I don't need to prove anything to you because I don't even know who you are. I just need to get to the other side of this. And for that, I don't know if it's defensive driving or slightly aggressive driving. I don't really care how you want to classify it. I am doing my own stuff. I'm doing it the best I can. And I want to do it without infringing on somebody else's space as much as humanly possible. But this is not you versus me. This is just me versus a situation, and I need to get through the other side. That's it. And a lot of comments have actually circled this blog by saying, suspend your ego. There's like literally, I'm saying hundreds of comments saying suspend your ego, which means people do understand that being behind the wheel, being at the handlebar, does make your ego function slightly differently. Oh, man. Right? And you have to get past that.
So this defensive driving angle, another perspective for this is for us in India. We can think about, I am very proper. I follow all the rules and I will drive. I'm doing my best. And that guy is not doing his best. So why should I give him way? Listen, most of the people are not going to be driving according to the rules.
Yeah.
So don't get stuck in that rut. So that defensive driving angle from a slightly different perspective.
Yeah, no, but you're spot on. It's the same angle as far as I'm concerned. It's
Okay.
part of the same thought process.
You cannot follow that. So that they was telling you on the expressway, this guy wanted to escalate a situation, right? By trying to bring his SUV very close to what I was driving and stuff like that. All I did was, I'm not falling for this. I don't want to escalate. I made it very clear that he was trying to get me to get angry. And I was just like, hey man, listen, you go on your way. I'm going to go on my way.
Correct.
And wrap it up. I'm not interested in any of this. And in terms of who's driving well, not, just think about protecting your machine, protecting yourself, and
That's
getting
it.
home safe.
Yeah.
Full stop. Yeah, it's not worth it. You'll find 10 people like that on the road. You've got better things to do.
And hopefully you're not one of those 10. That is the key thing here.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, but I'm very clear about this. As much as at MotorInc, our job is to set the agenda for how do we do this better. I'm trying to do this better when I'm riding by myself. I'm not trying to teach anybody while I'm riding. If you want to learn from me, you have two choices. You can watch MotorInc if you like. You can come to the school where I can give you a much closer interaction and I can introduce you to people who ride even better than me and have even more insight than me in how you ride better, right? I'm not doing this on the commute to work every day. I have no interest at all. I have had people who say, can I ride behind you? Can I overtake you? I will race you. I have no interest
On
in
public roads?
Yeah, and I have no interest in any of this.
Oh.
I don't want to be part of any of these structures.
So you were asking me, why don't you go? How do you manage that?
I'm too self-immersed, honestly, to get involved in any of this. I'm just busy. I put on my helmet and I focus very narrowly on the idea saying, I need to get to work. And then there are no more distractions. Right? I'm not in a rush. Once I'm in a motorcycle is the most powerful thing I do. So if I'm running late, I will run to the bike. I will run off the bike when I arrive at the parking lot on the other side. On the motorcycle, I'm still doing exactly what I want to do every single day, which is, can I ride this better than I did yesterday?
Right.
That's it. If you ride better, you will get there a little bit quicker. That can have a very, very satisfactory idea of saying, I did a good job and I saved a little bit of time. But to ride and think I'm going to save time, that's just not going to happen. It's just going to make you ride worse because your attention is on the time rather than your skill. And then you're interrupting yourself. You're making foolish mistakes. You're picking the wrong gaps. You're trying to, do that last, it's turning yellow. Maybe I will get to the intersection kind of nonsense. It never adds up.
So for me, I think it's been a long journey, and I'm still getting there. I feel to becoming.
Yeah. So I think the difference is that I was born and brought up in Delhi, which is culturally a slightly more aggressive place than Mumbai. So it was quite natural for you to be quite aggressive on a motorcycle early on. But even then, I think
wouldn't it be the other way around? That you'd be more careful.
No. Delhi is an aggressive place, or at least it used to be quite aggressive earlier. So everybody had aggression. And Delhi has wider roads, so everything happens a little bit quicker because Mumbai just gets clogged very quickly,
Correct.
right? So you had the opportunity to go a little bit quicker, and everybody's going faster.
Right.
But like on a 3-lane road in Mumbai, everybody will turn in 3 lanes without interrupting each other. And the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, this is too close for comfort. Then I realized this is normal for this city. Right. In Delhi, it was still a little bit more chaotic than that. But even then I discovered I was very self-absorbed. So when I rode with people, like I was going to Chotu's garage. So sometimes path would cross and we have to go the same way or whatever. I wouldn't try to keep up with somebody who was faster than me. And I would never try to slow down for them beyond slowing down now and then to make sure that they could still see where we are going in case I was doing the directions.
Okay.
But I am not riding off my pace or doing something differently because they happen to be there. And it sounds super egoistic, perhaps. But I think that's a good thing. Because I'm so self-absorbed that I couldn't be bothered with the other people, right? And then I would get compliments or brickbats later. Say, oh, you did that and maybe you shouldn't do it. Or, wow, you ride so well. Both has happened. But I am not involved with you and it is not in that moment. It is a post-analysis, which is fine. Post-analysis means you can sit down, have a chai.
Right.
And over that chai, you can discuss good behavior and bad behavior, right?
Okay.
That way.
Got it.
Next, Namir Kalra says, if you like something, it is your view. You don't need to justify it, even if it's not the best.
Interesting. Which is fair. I mean, do you need... should you be open to discussion? Yeah, sure.
I would ask the question, should you need to justify anything at all to anyone as long as you're not doing something that infringes on somebody else's freedoms?
There. By itself, it's a little bit.
Yeah. Because to me, we see a lot of people who will come and say, you said that this bike is not worth buying. But I like the bike. So go buy the bike. And you can purchase vehicles without MotorInc recommending it to you. It's completely fair and it's completely okay, and we'll still be happy for you and we'll still congratulate you with all of the sincerity, right? But the idea is, I don't have to justify your purchase to you, and why should I? And more importantly, why are you looking for justification? You've done some thought process that leads you to the idea that this is the right vehicle for me.
This immediately makes a lot more sense, feels a lot more focused with an easy answer as soon as you start thinking about it as a purchase. As soon as you start thinking about it as a purchase, it becomes very clear cut.
Look, you know the reason why we don't make lists at Motoring and there's no top 3 videos, top 5 cars at this price point and that segment? It's because we believe that there will be a small section of the audience which will get the wrong conclusion from these lists, because these lists might reach the majority demographic, but it does not reach everyone. And we'd just rather deal with everybody one-on-one if we can and give you the right answer for you. And your best is your best. It doesn't have to be a global best. Like, I'll give you my example, okay? He knows this. I like sharp, fast, accurate, angry, aggressive motorcycles. These are scary things to ride. This is how I prefer my motorcycles. Therefore, they can automatically not be the right motorcycle for everyone. They're a very specific kind of motorcycle, right? But these are my best.
Correct.
Will the motorcycles globally that feature on my list ever be the best of everything? They can't. For that, you need to create something that Honda does, right? Something calmer, something more neutral, something much more sober, something more natural, where it can be aggressive if you feel like it, but it can be very sober if you feel like it. And it's a blend of things. I don't want that blend.
And also in this, now since we're talking about reviews, I think it's important for everybody to understand that each one of us is different also.
Yeah.
So, and it may be us, how we are physically built. It may be what our mindset is.
Experience.
It's our lives that we have, the people we have in our lives. So our needs are going to change, right? They're going to be different from each other. So not having to justify is absolutely fine as long as you know you found something that works for you. It's game on.
Yeah. So look, for example, the Honda CB350, which causes a lot of discussion. So let's bring that up, right? What do we not like about this motorcycle fundamentally is the fact that it's not a Honda to us. It's not how we see Honda building a retro class motorcycle today. The formula is wrong. Because the formula is wrong, the sound doesn't really work, because it makes a Royal Enfield sound when it should be making a Honda sound. And a Honda sound is not a very loud sound ever, right? And so on and so forth. That doesn't mean you can't buy a CB350. That means I can't recommend a CB350 to you. I can still congratulate you for buying a CB350, which I will. And if your CB350 runs into trouble, I will give you advice as sincerely as I would if you had bought anything else on the market. I'm not going to recommend it to you though. I think that bike is wrong. And that's my opinion. If it's your best, go for it. Knock yourself out. And I hope you have a good ride. Why should we agree?
Yeah. We don't have to agree, absolutely.
Yeah.
And on this, since this would be a good place to talk about it, we talk about Tatas. Tatas are, I mean, for a lot of people, they just work. They are happy with them. And good for them. But the problem also is that they can't fit everybody's idea of a great car.
Yeah.
Which we accept. That we are a certain type of audience. And there are many other people out there who have different mindsets, who are okay with saying that, you know, I'm fine to have a couple of glitches. I'm okay with not so great service. I can live with that. I've got time.
Yeah.
This is not my only car. This is not such a big expense for me. So I can live with those kind of things, because otherwise I think the value that I'm getting is great. Sure, if you're that person, by all means, go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, if it works for you, great. But that doesn't mean that we can be recommending it, because our mindset is different as to how we approach cars.
Correct. And to add to your point, there is a little bit of, I'm going to call it attitude adjustment, where I want you to understand that certain things are bad ideas in the long run, and we need to start moving away from those ideas. In the current example, manufacturers who are not thinking on their own feet, that's a bad example. We need to move away from that so that we can get more innovative, more varied products. We have a bigger range of choices rather than the same motorcycle made by 5 people with 5% differentials and different badges. In the same way, we should not accept the niggles from Tata as a global okay, because it means we can get better cars from Tata by pushing them to do better work, which is good for India, which is good for Tata, which is good for the customers. You still can buy the niggly Tata if you want, or a copy of the Royal Enfield with any preferable badge on the tank if you want. That's not the issue here. The issue here is this the right attitude for the big picture? And if it is not, I'm not going to recommend that product. That's it.
Correct.
Right? Your turn.
Maintaining the right RPMs for the right gear and terrain. It increases performance and economy. This is Selvan Lenin.
What do you think?
Don't drive like an uncle. Ride like an uncle. Full stop.
Are you stereotyping uncles?
You
remember you're talking to a 50-year-old here.
Not that kind of 50-year-old, as far as I know. This is, if more 50-year-olds were like this, I think we'd have a different problem on our hands. Too much brap on the roads. This is what I remember. Like when I was in college. So my friend, we went with his family for a holiday. We drove down to the coast, Konkan coast, and his mama had, and imagine back then, he just got a Honda City 1.5 liter, the iV-Tech in that blue shade with that wing at the rear. It was gorgeous.
The kind of cars that Honda should have been making today also.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, such a great
with
point.
emotion. So that car was there, and we were a convoy of cars. We were like some 2-3 cars, and I think the kids had been stuffed into one Sumo and all of that, and there was one Baleno or something like that. So we were all going, and we were just drooling at that car, and both me and my friend were just like, look at that, he's short shifting. What is he doing? I mean, he's in a city, he's making an overtake. Why is he short shifting through that? You go gear down, make it quick, make it clean, get it done, right? Yeah. So I think that's how I interpret it. For the right environment, for the right needs of the moment. I mean, you could take it as terrain or whatever. Use the RPMs, use the right gears, even the gears. Like people get stuck in one gear and just say, "Khich lenge."
No, and I think there's another side to this. A lot of comments also talked about, should you be redlining engines, for example? And there were a few questions in there. We're not going to questions this time because we're focused on the advice. But a lot of people have asked this question. Should you redline your motorcycle?
Yeah.
Should you?
I do.
You should, yeah. That's what it's for. You paid for the red line also. Right? Okay, think about it like this. If you paid, let's say, 1 lakh rupees for a 125cc motorcycle, you paid for 0 RPM, you paid for 100 RPM, 200 RPM, all the way out to 8,500 RPM, which is where the red line is. You paid for all of those RPMs. They all exist for a reason, and they all do a job or the other.
As a Marwadi, I feel compelled to go out and rev the heck out of my bike again now.
Yeah, the only part on a bike that you've paid for and maybe you don't want to use is the horn. And okay, in an emergency, in a particular situation, yes, you should beep your horn. But think about it like this. The low revs have a job to do. The mid revs have a job to do. The high revs have a job to do. The gears have a job to do. What you should be learning to do is operate all of those things when they're required, when they are the best tool for the job. That's how a good rider and a good driver should work. This is responsive to terrain. This is responsive to requirement. And as he says, it has economy implications and performance implications.
Dude,
what?
Sorry. I jumped to another comment that I'd seen, which is not advice, but it was a question. And it was a brilliant question.
Okay.
Is there a difference between a rash driver and a bad driver?
A bad driver, I think, is a superset. A rash driver is a subset in the bad driver set.
And that's exactly it. The people who think, I'm not going to stress my engine out. I'm going to do this, whatever, at this pace only. They are also bad drivers. Yeah. Rash drivers are a set under bad drivers. So most bad drivers might be the ones who think, मैं तो बहुत अच्छे से चलाता हूँ, मैं तो धीरे चलाता हूँ, मैं तो मतलब कहीं जल्दबाजी नहीं करता.
That may not be a good idea, right? No, in fact, we discussed this and we haven't talked about it at length, but I want to at length. The idea that, look, going slow is going slow. Going slow after you've figured out how to go fast is a whole different, much higher skill level thing. And to me, if you want to be a good rider and a good driver, you cannot do this on a public road, honestly. But you have to learn how to go fast. To find the building blocks of how fast works, which has sight, which has physical skills, which has a lot of practice and experience built in. And when those components come together, and it comes to a point where 80 kmph in the real world to your brain feels like 40 kmph in terms of how much processing capacity it needs to use it.
Yeah.
When you use that kind of skill level to do 40 kmph overall, then you just have all the time in the world to see a lot more of what's going on. The decision making data that you're using to make the next call, which is a lane change, an overtake, or whatever, is a much, much more massive set. The mistakes really do go away and you really do drive better. It is quicker. It is more efficient. You'll gain economy from it, but you're not going any faster.
And that's the point I think I would really like to stress on, because that might ring a bell for people or connect with people, is efficiency. You do get efficiency gains when you use the right gears, the right RPMs.
Correct.
You actually are getting the best out of the engine. Let me tell you this. When you're at, let's say, in a gear, sitting at really low RPMs, and when you want to pick up pace, what does it do?
It basically rolls your eyes at you.
The engine is then the ECU. The software is telling the system, dose in more fuel.
Correct.
So it's just dumping in more fuel to get the engine to start spinning up faster.
Correct.
Whereas if you were to just shift down,
Yeah.
you'd be in a sweeter spot. So the fuel required to get that momentum would be lesser.
Correct. And in a way, carburetors and fuel injection systems are very interesting here, because if you did this with a carbureted thing and you requested a lot of torque, you could bog the engine by giving it too much fuel. And why you don't feel the need to change a gear down is because the fuel injection system takes care of the fact that you just made a mistake.
How many of you recognize this sound? We are sure that you're over 30.
Yeah, because on a carbureted motorcycle, you could not do this. Not all motorcycles would respond to it, and especially the lean burn things that happen because of the emission norms, they just wouldn't. You do this and it just die.
Yeah. That would be
And finish. Yeah. And then you restart the bike and like, let's do better next time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Amber Khan says, you ride for personal enjoyment.
I know Amber. Hello.
Yeah, we recognize him because he's in our comments a lot. You ride for personal enjoyment, not for proving a point or gaining a follower. I mean, thanks Amber, but this is obvious. It should be obvious, right?
This is like one of those life lessons, na?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you think about the guys who are the most successful motorcycle social media personalities, a lot of what they started doing, they were doing anyway. And a camera was spotlighted on what they were doing. And it happened to a few of them that they went with the analytics and they changed who they were and they created more popular forms of content. But the really respectable people out on social media do what they do. They just have more cameras pointed at them today. It's not about gaining that follower. Right? And if you have this idea that, if I do blogging or motor vlogging or whatever, I'll become super successful and famous. Remember that these are all pyramids, right? At the bottom is a large mass that makes no money at all. And then it goes up like this. And it's like the guys right at the top of that pyramid who actually make substantial, I can live on this money from social media. Everybody else does not. If you're riding motorcycles as a hobby, if you're driving cars as a hobby, remember that it's a hobby. And if you want to record what you do as a hobby, that's fine. The moment you start doing things so that you think you're going to get social media engagement or visibility or followers, something in your khichdi is now stinking, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm telling you this, Kartik and I have been in front of cameras for a really long time now. How many times have you done something that you wouldn't normally do for the camera, knowing that somebody in your social media team has said, agar aap ye karoge to ye viral hoega, trend karega, and you've done it happily.
Too old for that.
And have you done it happily?
Too old for that.
Yeah. 99% of the time when I'm on a motorcycle, even if I have a GoPro with me, it's in my bag. I am so reluctant to stop that even if the phone is easily accessible, I will barely ever stop to take a photograph.
Tell me if this has not happened to you, that when you've put on a GoPro on group rides or maybe individual rides, accidents have happened.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I have seen
And it's in the GoPro tagline, you know what it says?
Be a hero.
Don't be a hero. I mean, if you're either a hero or you're not, clicking the record button on something, not turn you into a hero, right?
You know how many rides I've gone for and had the GoPro in my backpack and never put it on?
Yeah.
It's just
It happens all the time.
It's just like, theek hai, jana de, ride karte hain.
Yeah. And think about it like this, right? Let's say that we've ridden up to Manali together and the hotel guys have put a bonfire for us and it's really nice and cold and we're having something nice to eat. I could tell you what happened in my ride, and that's usually an interesting conversation, or I could show you the pictures I took. What do you think creates a more lasting impact?
Yeah.
Is it the fact that we're looking at another screen together? Or is it the fact that we're discussing feelings, sensations, and all of that?
There's something very
What?
disturbing and deep about this also.
Okay, let's explore that.
Because, like you also, we spoke about this, and which one did we speak about this on? Where, motorcycling, a dying culture. People are coming into this to get popularity. They may not be motorcyclists or automotive enthusiasts in the
Correct.
first place. They've come into this for the sake of, अच्छा ये ऐसा करेंगे, कुछ ऐसा dramatic होगा,
तो ये results मिलेंगे.
तो I will become popular. And which is quite messed up.
Yeah.
I mean, find something that you really want to work on. Because it's not, I mean, you're changing who you are for one thing. I'm sure there'll be something that people have that is intrinsically appealing to them.
Yeah.
Find that.
Time and effort lost to an activity where you thought you'd get some quick result, which you could have used to do a time, which you could have spent on an activity that you enjoy doing anyway.
And on the flip side, we might get rid of some jackasses because a lot of people are just unnecessarily giving. I mean, looking at what's happening on social media, you just look at who the hell are these? How can these be people who are riding or driving actively, man?
Yeah.
Pritish 28. If you're learning something new in riding, start slow and you'll eventually be fast enough.
You can remove the word riding from this. This is true for everything. This is awesome advice.
Again, life lesson.
No, this is awesome advice. Look, when I go to the track school, the guys who struggle to learn the most are the guys who are trying to go fast.
Right.
The guys who end up going the fastest at the end of the 2-day school are the guys who didn't try to go faster. They're the guys who try to do the things correctly, which requires automatically for them to do things slowly first. This is such great advice. And it applies to everything.
I think practically everything for me starts slow. I don't go fast with anything. Whenever, so I can give you examples of this. The thinking you know something and rushing into it. Remember the RC390 ride when we were in Modena?
Yeah.
Remember I crashed?
Yeah.
Because I said, okay, I know this bike. I can ride it hard. And yeah, I didn't know the bike. The track was all right. It was fine. But remember the curves?
Yeah.
They had those big curves and it had rained. And I hit one of those curves and next thing, tough.
Yeah.
I didn't give myself time. I should have given myself time to see, look, all of that. I did not. The track looked dry. Sure, that would also be dry. But I hit the curb.
Yeah, and I was behind him. I was like, how is he going so fast? I'd like to be able to do that. And then 2 laps later, I saw a yellow flag and I said, I think that's Kartikeya.
So it was like we'd already ridden the RC390 here in India.
Yeah.
And then we went to Modena. We'd already ridden it here, no? Or what was it?
No, I think we'd ridden the 390 so much that the RC390 was like not like a super unfamiliar thing for us. Right? It was like a change of handlebar, change of foot peg, whatever. We'll figure this out.
So that for me was again a life lesson, saying that, dude, you may know, you think you know everything, but you still got to take time.
Yeah, you do.
And
you always do.
That for me is something I always think.
And you know, I think because we teach this at the racetrack, there is a little bit of science to this also. When you're trying to do something new, you're trying to assimilate a new skill, which means you're required to use a certain percentage of your brain to do it. But when you start to try and do it faster than you're comfortable with, then you're simply not giving the brain all the processing power it needs to learn the skill. You're trying to execute the current action. So the learning doesn't happen. Right? Back to motorcycles, just to make it simple, for example, we say that you could go faster in that corner. Now you go out and try it. But if you go out and try it and you succeed at it, you actually haven't learned anything. You've just executed it successfully once, which is very satisfying. It's very thrilling and all of that. But how did you do it is an unknown. But when you do it slower, then you can break it down and say, okay, so I will brake a little bit later and I will brake harder so that I use less space to brake. And then I will turn the bike quicker, which means I get pointed earlier. And therefore, I have more confidence and I can start opening the throttle earlier. And all of those actions together, especially that last one, is what led to a faster corner.
Yeah.
But you can't have the brain space to process all of this if you couldn't do that pace comfortably in the first place. Because if you go faster than this, then it's not I did logically these 5 steps. It's like, oh my God, I'm scared, but I'm going to push through it and I'm going to see what happens. And that gives you a result, but it doesn't give you a process, which means you can keep repeating this until you crash. And then that will become the limit of you because you haven't never thought about what did I do to get to that limit. You just saw, oh, that's the limit.
Right.
So you always start slow. You always break it down. And I think that's why we speak so slowly on MotorInc. We're still learning.
This was taught to me actually by Aspi at the track. Aspi is, as you would know, most of you, he's India's one and only racer who has a medal from the Isle of Man, right? And he's also the editor of Car India, Bike India. So he used to be my boss at one time. And at a racetrack, at some event, we were riding, and he was like, "What are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "How much have you ridden?" I was like, thinking I'm being like, "Oh, I've ridden 30 minutes." It's like, "Why are you riding 30 minutes?" So what do you mean? They said, no. At the max, you ride 20 minutes.
Correct.
And then you take 40 minutes off. I said, what? It's like, no. You do this, try it. And I tried it. And it felt ridiculous that in an hour you're spending 40 minutes chilling, or let's say 30 minutes chilling, but 20 minutes and 30 minutes off. But you know what I realized? What you spoke about sensory inputs. And that for me is one of the biggest learnings, which is why I'm happy to take it slow. Like I have accepted that maybe that's who I am, but maybe I get a little bit more out of it, right? On even with cars, with bikes, I've seen this again and again. When you have taken that time off, your brain, your entire body is immersed in the experience. It's soaking so much in.
Yeah.
Especially when you're doing something hard, fast. Like even if you're doing running, even if you run, like I love running hills and all of that, it's superb. But I am confident to run on uneven terrain more than most people. Because I have grown up doing that. And that was doing what? I'd run with my dog, I'd run up and down a hill, and then we'd stop. I'd let him chill out for a bit, and then we'd do it again.
Correct.
But through that process, we learned how to handle different rocks, how to place footfall, what should it be like. All of that happened in the background. Nobody came and taught me that you run cross or you go down cross or how do you step from one to the other. And the same thing happened after this.
Correct.
Because then I started realizing the brain is processing so much more of what information you're getting. And by the time you're ready to get back on the bike, these thoughts have formulated in your head saying that, hey, why don't you try this now?
Correct.
Which actively, I don't think I could have.
And the key thing that he said there is time to think. You have to go slow enough so that you have the time to do what you're trying to do and a little bit of time to understand the precepts that you will think about later. If you can't generate the precepts that you have to think about later, you haven't learned anything.
And trust me, Shumi, I will admit this. I don't think I had the intelligence to come up with even 50% of the ideas that came up at the end of those 40 minutes. Right? They came from inside, they came from sensations that were deep down. And it was when I was getting ready to go out again, I'd be like, why don't I try this time in this corner? Why don't I do this differently? Which actively, if you had told me when I got off the bike, what do you need to do to get better the next time? I said, I have no idea.
Yeah, you would have no idea at all. You're absolutely right. It says PBT, which I assume is private. Stan R is the username. And he says, delay a decision long enough and you may realize it's not what you want.
Dude, so many life lessons here, man.
It's like the...
We're not talking about riding and driving.
I think we're going to get cancelled by Amazon. I can't tell you how many times I've loaded the Amazon cart and then just ignored it for 3 days and then come and said, I don't need any of these things. And I just deleted the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So have you actually ever done this?
I do it all the time.
Yeah?
Yeah, because look, I want to have more motorcycles and more motorcycle experience, and I'm very lucky that I have this job which gives me all the motorcycles anyway, but I still have desires. Oh, this looks like such a great bike, I should buy one. And then I will think about it, and like there was a time when there was a rumor many years ago that the 790 Adventure was coming. I did everything. I downloaded all the material, I saw all the press releases, then I read what people were saying about it, who was making what for it, which parts of those did I want.
Yeah, I know, we've discussed this.
Right?
You had kitted it out already.
Yeah, so various lists and, curated agenda was created. And then I think after a month of doing this in a circle, I just stopped and I just let it be. And then a month later, I said, I don't want this bike. Actually, I want the Adventure R. Then I started again, right? And I still do this. Like the Isuzu conversation, right? The truck thing. I have circled that blog multiple times, and I know more about the V-Cross than I logically should, given the fact that I have no intention of actually buying one, right? But I love that process. I love the window shopping part of the process. I just know that when I'm done window shopping, you do nothing else. If that thing sticks with you...
What do you mean do nothing else?
So for example, I'll give you the example of the 210. When I rode the 210 in 2016, the test bike, I fell in love with it. To the point where I cried when I had to give it back, and I have never howled for a bike, like tears falling. You know this.
Yeah, you've said.
I wrote it off, saying that this is a bike I will never be able to afford. So there is no point thinking about this bike. So did I do the research about the exhaust and the aftermarket? No, I didn't. I said, I love it. I can't have it. I am done here. This is just an emotional wormhole, right? I'll keep going down this rabbit hole. I'll just keep feeling worse. Screw it. We'll never think about this bike again. And it kept coming back. Anytime I would ride a street naked of any sort, in my head, the 210 will pop up. And then a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, this damn 210 is not leaving my head, yeah. When
It was that big a gap, huh?
I rode the bike in 2016ish, and I bought the bike in 2019, 20, something like that. So there was a big gap, right? The fact that it kept coming back confirmed the idea that when there is money, this is something that is worth chasing. And then eventually there was money, there was a used bike, it was a known person's bike, we knew via friends. Because they were friends, they helped me out because I didn't actually have as much money as they wanted, etc., etc. It fell into place. Now I have a 210. Did it turn out to be all the amazing things that I thought it was? Yes, it did. But the thing is, I didn't push that decision, because I couldn't. But I didn't push the decision saying, so how do I find the money to get it tonight? No, let it simmer, it's okay.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is today, instant gratification is a thing. And this Amazon delivering things to you overnight is also a thing. And how much crap is in the house? Because you've just had, oh, I need this. And you've ordered some 200, 300, 400 rupee doodad. And then you use it for 3 days and you don't know where it went.
Yeah.
Right? And that's half a tank of fuel on most of our motorcycles, which is a much better spend if you ask me. What have you done like this?
I'm terrible, actually. No, I am like king of abstaining. So
Yeah.
I will not buy anything. So all the bikes, whatever car stuff, everything, I will go on looking at things, saying, "Oh, this is so nice. This is so nice. Oh, this would be so nice if I had it. Oh, wow, wow, wow." So it will go on like that for years.
And you won't do anything about it.
I will not. One day, Vanita will get fed up, and she'll be like, "Bus ho gaya." That is how all the bikes have come. All
Okay.
the bikes have been her, right? So she'll just like at one point say, "Enough! I'm taking you to the showroom." The Dukes happened that way. The Busa also happened that way. Busa, when I came to know, oh, the production is ending, I'm like, oh, production is ending. She's like, what the hell are you doing? The production, you said you'll buy it, before this goes out of sale. I said, no, it's okay. She's like, no, come on, right now. So it was literally like that. So I will just hang off comfortably. Somehow I'll just say like, oh, it would be so nice. I think that's what when I get it, the sense of satisfaction is so great because you've abstained for so long. Then when you get it, you're like, oh my god, it's happened. It's bizarre, but somehow I cannot just randomly go and buy something. I just feel like it'll be wasteful. One, it'll definitely not the Marwadi angle, but it's just the thing of if it's not right for you, it won't happen.
And if you discover that after you've got it, then it's much worse.
100%. And for the longest time, like for me, I thought the Busa was not the bike for me, right? Even though I'd ridden it before and all of that, it's only the click happened much later. And I said that I'd never thought of having a big bike.
Yeah.
But the Busa, when that click happened, I said, I want this in my life. And from then to getting it was another 2-3 years.
Yeah.
Right? So it was, So I think abstaining in itself,
or at the very minimum, delayed gratification.
is the sense of satisfaction then when you do choose to indulge is so much greater.
Yeah.
You'll value it.
Yeah. No, and instant gratification, I think one big issue is the fact that you lose that sense of value because you have a desire or an impulse and then you get it. And then there is a very brief period while you're, so cool. But because it happened so quickly, you don't really value it because it didn't feel like you worked hard enough to earn it, achieve it. And then the next impulse comes because you've just given yourself that, I had an impulse, I satisfied it. So now this becomes a process, right? You keep trying to do this. I think just taking it slow is much, much better.
Very few people would we have seen, them, this kind of setup where somebody has innumerable vehicles,
Correct.
but their sense of joy from their innumerable motorcycles is very little.
And there are very few people who have such a highly curated collection,
Very few.
large curated collection, that everything has a clear sense of value and a way it fits into that large puzzle, right? There's a lot of guys who think a collection is acquisition and it's just one thing after the other, and they're lucky enough to have the financial wherewithal to keep doing this. I don't ever get the sense of that they're physically so attached to 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 10 of these things, right? It's a moving thing where it says, I have the coolest stuff.
Yeah.
And then you come back 6, 7, 8 months later, they've added new cool stuff and got rid of some of the old
Yeah.
cool stuff. So suddenly you're like, but you were talking so highly about that one the last time. How did you let it go? Oh, I just had to replace it. I don't understand
Yeah,
it.
I don't go for that either. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
Next one.
Yeah.
Jayant Makam. He says, friends don't let friends ride in flip-flops.
I'm saying let your friend make a mistake. It's okay. Be there for them when they do. Get them patched up. And hopefully they learn from it. But yeah, you would look out for your friends. And one of the way to look out for them is to prevent them from doing something that is patently stupid. Sometimes your friends are not willing to learn from that. From being told that, hey, listen, you're about to do something stupid. Sometimes you have to let them make a mistake. And then the true friend thing comes when say, I told you. Now you've done this. Now I'm going to help you fix it. And don't stress. What?
I'm just thinking, how many have you had the opportunity to do this with?
Look, I love being right.
Right.
So I'm like, yeah, you probably shouldn't do that. And they'll be like, oh, but I'll do it. So, yeah, go for it. And then you see the dominoes fall, right? And then suddenly they're like,
Yeah.
you were right. And at that point, I am like, now let me help you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a very simple one. I think on one hand, there'll be people who listen. On the other, there'll be people
Yeah.
who won't.
Look, I'm very clear. Advice is advice. Some people will take it. Some people will not take it. I'm assuming the advice is good intentioned. But you can also have advice that is ill intentioned and you may not be able to distinguish between the two. So when you're giving it and when it is being received on both sides of this picture, some will get absorbed, some will not. And I don't think this is a big deal. If it is a patently stupid thing, the consequences will come. The thing about friends is they're there with you to deal with the consequences. That's it.
Yeah, I think there's a very nice thing that can be actioned out of this. When you see somebody in your friend circle who's doing something stupid, if you can say it with that emotion that, hey, dude, don't do this. With the idea that, okay, you may still continue to do this. And
Let me film this.
When you screw up, I'll be there for you. So the love is there.
Yeah.
Be a jackass if you want
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
but I'm letting you know.
Yeah. That's what friends are for. They're there to film you making a mistake and then to help you patch up after
I
the
think
mistake
those
has been
filming
made.
sessions are the cause of the mistakes. It's not
Yeah,
the
but
other way
see,
around.
I think just as much as we hate the idea that a lot of stuff is happening because there are cameras, I think recording stupidity for posterity is also a very, very, I'm going to say productive pastime.
Collection of life lessons.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Crazy Sharma is a regular commenter and he says, please wear a helmet even if you're going to the Bajuwala market. And I think this is interesting because I want to make 2 points here.
Okay.
I've heard of the people who say, I have a cheap helmet that I use in the city and an expensive one that I use outside the city. Which presumes that your head has different values depending on its geographical location, which is, to me, patently stupid. Your brain has the same level of value no matter what you're doing and where you're going, one. Two, the idea that there is a certain kind of ride where you can get away by not wearing safety gear of any sort, it's a personal choice. You can choose not to do it. But the helmet to me is the basic, essential and required by law. I will wear my helmet even if I'm going to get a haircut and I know what that means for hygiene. I will still do it. Having a few stray bits of hair in my helmet is still better than having a stupid crash on the way home 300 meters from my saloon to my house.
Balaclava. No problem.
It doesn't matter. I'm saying I don't use balaclavas at all. I don't understand what they're for, but
I love them.
yeah, I don't understand it, so it's okay. I'm saying even then I would still wear the helmet, and if that means I get to wash the interiors of the helmet and clean it further, I think that's a far more productive thing to do than to go there. And I'm telling you, if there's a day when I say I don't want to ride the motorcycle there because the helmet is too much of a hassle, I will walk.
I will equate this to seat belts. There's enough and more. अरे इधर तो जा रहे हैं, धीरे तो चला रहा हूँ. Both these devices are so powerful and have been on our must-have list. Even when there was no conditioning socially for us to use them, have them, advise people to use them, because the importance and the benefits or the protection that they offer is so massive for the small trade-off of inconvenience or discomfort or whatever you want to call it. Like because for all these things, those counter arguments are there. अरे helmet भारी है, गला दुखेगा, seat belt नहीं चुभता है, ये होता है, वो होता है, and all that nonsense. But the trade-off in terms of advantages is so massive that
Charles Darwin is happy.
This is a no-brainer. Yeah.
And it is a no-brainer. It's a very astute,
pulled in.
very astute choice of words, Karthik. Not wearing a helmet is a no-brainer. I think that is kick-ass. It needs to go on a MotorInc t-shirt now.
That's a good one, man. Nice. Okay.
So the Crazy Sharma, thank you for that. If we ever make a t-shirt that says not wearing a helmet is a no-brainer, you're getting one. I promise. I will take care of this.
Motor Critic says, don't try to catch up with someone, even if you have a fast motorcycle and they have a slow one.
It's a very subversive tip.
Deadly, eh?
Deadly. Did you understand what happened here? He's basically saying you must ride within your own limits. There is no other way to ride a motorcycle well. How fast, how slow, who's going faster, who's going slower, none of these things make any difference. You can only do one thing today, and you can work on becoming a better version of that tomorrow. But today, that's the finite amount of skill you've got. You're going to go no faster.
There's so many ways I can think about it, that you might be on a more powerful motorcycle or a more powerful car or whatever, and you see something getting away from you.
Yeah.
Chances are that vehicle is better adapted to our environment.
Yeah,
It
Lord
has the
Alto.
genetic advantage. Lord Alto and the Activa, yeah.
Yeah.
So many times. I remember one time, what was it? We were riding through Mumbai. I think it was me and all, and we were just like we couldn't escape a scooter. Yeah, हम
Yeah,
लोग
you
जो भी
couldn't.
bikes पे घूम रहे थे ये
You
वो,
can't.
but you can't escape a scooter in traffic.
You can't.
So don't get your ego into it again.
Yeah.
What it is, it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, now we are going into the last 3 or 4 comments and we're going to wrap this up. This is, his name is Ronnie Rules 29 and he says, and I love this one, while crossing a car or bus from the left or the right, keep an eye on the front tires. A change of direction will come from there and it'll give you time to react early. Do you do this?
This is beautiful. I don't actually look at the wheels so much, but I do look at the body. So that is what I end up focusing on more than the wheels themselves. Which is how I think a lot of us, we're doing it instinctively.
Yeah.
Right?
The good ones. Those of us who've paid attention to what's going on around us, we do it instinctively. I actually do look at the front wheel.
Okay.
So when I'm standing at a traffic light, especially where there's a whole bunch of vehicles around me,
Stand still.
just one example also happens on move. But at a traffic light, if I'm standing between 2 cars and their wheels are turned towards me, I'm on watch.
Of
And I
course.
may not accelerate away trying to beat the cars.
Because while driving, I don't know how useful it would be, because the deflection of the wheel would be very subtle. It will not be dramatic when you're traveling
yeah,
at
but
speed.
in your
any which
peripheral
way.
vision, the deflection is noticeable because your peripheral vision is quite sensitive to movement. So if you look at it directly, you may not notice a change in direction. But if you're aware of the wheels around you, the front wheels, the steering wheels, the peripheral vision can learn to pick up the change and you will react
Really?
earlier. Yeah. I do this all the time. And I'm at my most cautious when I'm standing at a traffic light and there's a vehicle around
But
me.
we're talking about 2 to 3, like 3 degrees of deflection. Yeah.
दिखता है. It takes time and it is worth it. It's an advanced skill as far as I'm concerned. It's not a basic thing.
Okay.
It takes time to work up to this. But if you can figure it out, there is an advantage to it. And the most basic level of this is stopped at a traffic light. If there's a vehicle around you and the wheels aren't pointing straight, you must know that when he releases the clutch or she releases the clutch, this thing is going to go left or right and not straight, and you have to account for it.
No, it's a great tip. But the way I end up using it is that you're looking for the body movement, and somehow you'll get a suggestion of the attitude of the driver. And generally, whether it's going to be erratic or not, you will get a sense of that temperament of that vehicle. Or
You'll notice that a change is coming.
yeah, you will be able to read it.
Yeah.
Bikes, mein, what else? In bikes, will you be able to, it'll be the rider's posture? Would that help?
On bikes, you will see, you can see the entire human being. For example, in a car, you will see above top half. And a lot of people advise people to look through vehicles and look into vehicles
That's
and
a
see.
good one.
And I think it's one of the few tips that will come up next. I think it's awesome. I do it all the time. Most motorcyclists can't make a turn without doing something first. So most of the people will just look straight 99% of the time. If they're looking straight, they'll continue to go straight. When the body starts to move around a little bit, you know they're about to do something. Whether it is to switch on the indicator and then start to make a turn, suddenly make a turn, suddenly brake, something is going to happen. So when I'm flowing through traffic and I'm seeing riders who are all looking steadily forward, slow or fast, I know that it's basically smooth flow. When there's people starting to twitch, then you know there are potholes or something ahead and they're all about to make small direction changes. And then you sort of back off a little bit and give yourself a little bit more space. The more skilled riders you are with, you will see much more exaggerated movements because they're not afraid to turn their heads, for example. They will hang off the motorcycle and completely change body position. So you can, on a road with, say, an unfamiliar road with somebody else ahead of you is riding, and they know the road well, you can sometimes learn from their body movements what's going to happen next. You'll see a lot of commitment for a tight corner and a much lighter level of commitment for a more shallow corner, for example. So there is a lot to be learned from operating and seeing what other people around you are doing and inferring information from there.
The next one is Josh Ack or Joe Shack. This is actually flowing right out of what we were talking about. He says, while driving at night, keep an eye on the tail lamps of the furthest car you can see. Notice the tail lamp to get the hint of the surface ahead. If movements are smooth, road is good. If you see jitters, maybe a bad section is going to come up. If brake lights are on for a little long, maybe a speed breaker, big bumps are ahead. Superb.
Yeah. And I think there is a micro view to this and a macro view to this. What he's written is the macro view, which is focus on something. I'm saying the macro view is you should be looking further ahead and gathering as much information as you can earlier. So you'd give yourself more time to react. And I think we all do this because we drive so much and ride so much anyway now, plus the racetrack experience. But the drivers who drive better natively generally are looking further than drivers who don't. And if that means looking through the car, you look through the car. So next, Subbu Venki 1. One advice I've given to folks that works for most of them is to slow down just a notch when they're doing a long day. Think about a long distance runner. They don't really sprint all the way. They're going pretty rapidly, but not at 100%.
Yep.
And equally important, make sure you're not slowing down so much that your senses and reflexes slow down too. Therefore, you become more at risk for emergency situations. This is superb. This is basically get yourself, this is what we said, I think, in the better driving advice thing, get comfortable. And comfortable is not too slow, so you're feeling slightly bored, and it's not so fast that you're feeling like everything is on edge and you have to concentrate fully. It's just a little bit in the middle. This is absolutely spot on.
Sweet spot.
Yeah. And I have literally nothing to add. This is exactly how it should be. So if you can ride, let's say you think that you can sustain 140 kilometers an hour all day. Let's say you could. And then I think that means you should be cruising at, say, 110, 114. So you're far away from that, but not too far away from that. And it's all about the balance.
So one explanation for why this is important is, think about this, the brain is a energy hog. It consumes so much energy. We don't think about it. If you're used to running at 100 kilometers an hour and you run at 110, you'll be consuming so much more energy. And which is why you end up feeling tired. So if you do the other thing, which is to go from 100 to 90, suddenly the brain is like way more chill. And that is why you'll end up, like we've discussed, is fewer stops, right? If you have the energy to go further, you'll make fewer stops. You won't be stressed. You won't be worked up about anything. You'll just manage to travel longer without needing a break.
Correct.
Works.
And I'll give you another very, very nice example. When Kartik and I were working with our friends on the MotorInc project at the beginning, there were, I think, 4 months in there where we had the privilege of being able to just sit and think about what we wanted to do.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember those days?
Yeah.
We'd get to work at 9 o'clock in the morning. We'd work till about 5 in the evening, which sounds like a really short working day with a half an hour, 40-minute lunch break. And we were physically exhausted at the end of the day. And we'd basically been sitting in a chair, maybe with a whiteboard, having conversations, thinking about stuff, working things out in our mind, making notes. This is all we did. And on those 4 odd months, I don't know about you, I would go home and I would not have the bandwidth to watch vegetable level TV. I would not be able to sit in front of the TV and watch something completely inane because I just didn't have any more space left to process.
Correct.
Were you in the same situation?
You remember we spoke about it, we were like, how the hell are we so tired? And just be like, man, this is probably the toughest work we've done in so long now. To just sit and chew through stuff endlessly. To figure stuff out, because there was no template, so to speak, to follow. We were trying to figure things out back then.
The next one.
This is from Arpit Agarwal. He says, a personal anecdote. When I'm out for a long drive with my family, I always ask my 11-year-old to do mental math about how much time we'll save if we go at X speed versus if we go at Y speed. And then we later use the trip data on my 700, I'm presuming XUV 700, to see how much was our actual overall speed when we touched X or Y speeds. Example, driving at 120 for 30 minutes instead of 100 will save you hardly a couple of minutes over a 10-hour journey. I hope he's absorbing this. Superb. That's an education.
I think there's two things in there. One is the practicality of it. The idea that a fast highway cruise is not about how fast you went, it's about how consistently you went through the distance. And the second is this person, Arpit, is clearly working out how to make sure that their kids are better drivers and better adjusted to doing better behavior in traffic more efficiently, etc. I think it's fantastic. As a combination, this is awesome. If my dad were to make me do mental math, though, I don't think I'd think more highly of him. But I know what Arpit is trying to do and I admire it.
It's also one way to teach math, man. Bring cars into the conversation.
I suppose, yeah. But, if I'm like sitting with my dad in the car and we're going for 10 hours and he's making me do mathematics, I'm not convinced that this is sounding like a very interesting experience. So full points to you, Arpit, for trying this out. This is awesome.
Superb.
Yeah. We'll close this off because I have, I think, the best advice of all out of the 3,000 or whatever comments we got.
Okay.
This is from a very interesting user handle. It's eggyolk2519.
Okay.
And the advice is breathe.
I tend to not breathe when I'm close to raw eggs, or especially eggs which are being cooked. But otherwise, I get it.
I'll leave his username out of it. I think this is such great advice, yeah.
Yeah.
Look, the one thing we do when we are not comfortable is hold our breath. It's crazy, right? And it happens biologically in all of these situations. So if you're on a lap where you're going faster at the racetrack than you're comfortable with, what's your problem? You're running out of breath. Why? Because you're holding your breath. What happens when you go into a situation where somebody doing something on the road and it's beginning to make you more and more aggravated? You're beginning to get tense and hold your breath. And what you need to do is take a deep breath. And I'm telling you, so many of my friends have been in situations, and I've been in situations, and the most common advice I've given them, and I'm very solution oriented, take a deep breath. Yeah. And there's so many situations in life, not just automobiles, where it applies, right?
I will connect it to sports. So, for instance, archery. I enjoy doing archery and I've done a little bit. All of that, everything, when you need to clarify and distill, it comes down to breath.
Yeah.
Golf, motorcycles, driving, everything.
Correct.
It comes down to breath. There's nothing. If you think about all the movies in which there's this dramatic moment where, let's say it's a sports movie and it's the last moment and he has to get that shot and do that last sprint. What does it come down to? It comes down to that slowing down of everything.
Correct.
And that sound of the breath and the heartbeat going tup, tup, tup,
Correct.
tup. That's it. It comes down to that.
Yeah.
It's what centers you. It's what focuses you. And it's what gets you in the zone to take better decisions.
Yeah,
I
in
think
fact,
it just comes to that.
I give you a direct example, sports example. We were hanging out with Ashish Rawrani, who went to the Dakar, and Ashish said the whole game is to keep your heart rate down. Right? I was like, what do you mean? So he says, when you're new and this terrain is new and the motorcycle is new and all of this, everything raises your anxiety and it causes you to become more and more tense. And what happens? You breathe faster, your heart pumps faster, and then things are happening at a pace that you're not happy about. So what do you do? So I say, what do you do? He says, you do everything that is required to restore your heartbeat to a much lower level. You breathe more gently and more softly, and you just calm yourself down. Take a deep breath.
Man, this ties everything up practically.
Yeah, the whole advice is about this, right? Is
Breathe.
take a deep breath, right? If you're trying to work out a skill and it's beginning to aggravate you and you're getting tense about it, then you're not going to learn anything because your brain is busy being angry, right? Take a deep breath. It's great advice. It's awesome advice. Thank you so much.
It's lovely, man. It actually takes everything and pulls it together.
That's why I kept it for last. I think it's superb advice.
Yeah.
And it's one word advice, okay? His entire comment is one word. Breathe. It's awesome. So,
super.
I think that was good. What should we do next?
Shumi, I'm adamant that I will decide what has to be discussed next
Okay,
time.
Kartik, I am following your lead.
I want to know, since you have a lot of knowledge and experience on this front, how to go ahead with what happens in case of an emergency situation.
You deal with it. Episode done.
So, okay, skip the next one. We'll chat anyways. Okay.
Done. It's a good topic to talk about. Yeah. It has been requested also. Let's do that. I don't like the fact that you're implying I've had more emergencies than you, but okay, we'll deal with it.
I said you have more knowledge. Yeah.
Week save. We'll talk about it.
You can rewind and watch, okay?
Done?
Done.
3, 2, 1. ThisConnect.